Episode 98 of Gaming and BS, sponsored by Gamehole Con, a gaming convention coming to Madison, Wisconsin in November. Get your ass to Gamehole Con and visit gameholecon.com for more information. Just like the man said, this is Gaming and BS. I'm one of your hosts, Sean.
I'm Brett. Welcome to the show. Welcome back.
I stumbled.
You totally stumbled.
Just like I did this weekend. I went for a run.
Yeah.
I posted it on Facebook, my nice raspberry.
Oh, you fell?
I fell. Yeah, I fell. And my wife's like, oh my God, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And she's like, what happened? You know, and I told her, so my wife laughs at anybody that falls. So I said, you would have laughed. She's like, I know I would have. And then she laughed. And then she said, where? And I said, right on Northport, one of the busy streets. Like I just running along.
And poof.
Cracking a sidewalk, man. Ass over tea kettle. Got frickin' scratches on my hands. And
the biggest bruise he has, folks, is his pride. You can see it from here. He's got this big purple or black pride bruise. Yeah, that's honestly, that's the worst part for me about doing something incredibly asinine in public. He's like, wow, I just embarrassed the shit out of myself. Hey, look at me, everybody. Oh, God.
I felt like I was 10 years old, like, look how fast I can run, and then just going crack
on your face.
Right. Yeah, so stumbling over the intro. But anyways, announcements.
So announcements, EverCon, my team and I, we've got our special guest list coming. We've got a few that we had finalized, and we're meeting this Saturday, excuse me, to make sure that we've got everything tied and I'm good to go with announcement-wise. But I think we're going to have a couple cool folks that people like to see, hang out with, game with, hopefully, and all that good stuff. So I will give the rundown next episode because I will have it finalized.
The suspense is killing me.
It ought to be. Oh, the other piece, while we're talking about conventions with Gamehole Con, we've had a number of folks in our G Plus community that are going to be running and going to be attending Gamehole Con. I've been talking about different cool things they're running for. So Gary's talked about stuff. God, I'm gonna lose my brain here and forget other folks. But we do have a number of other people out there. They're saying, "Hey, I'm running." We've got one dude who's going to be running Fiasco. God, I'm losing my mind. I can't remember who posted that up. Tim, thank you.
Tim Verning.
Yeah, yep. God, I feel like a complete jackass. I should have paid attention to who that was. Anyway, my apologies, Tim. Anyhow, if you haven't hit the community, it's a good opportunity to go out there now and just kind of see what folks are putting up. I know Roger Braslett's coming from Maine, one of the, 5 gamers out in that part of the country. But he's going to be out. He's going to be running some Warhammer, if I don't miss my guess. And he and I'll be the Warhammer First Ed guys running stuff. Yeah, Tim Verning is doing the Fiasco thing. So anyway, people have been talking about what they're doing and what's coming up, asking about different types of things. So, hey, get out there, poke around, see what you see.
So in episode 97, we did mention everybody who's running a game under Gaming and BS. And Jason Hobbs is coming up from the Illinois area to run a DCC game-ish. I think it's the Black... Oh, he's like probably...
Black Sun Deathcrawl?
I believe so.
Oh,
yeah.
I've heard nothing but good things about Black Sun Deathcrawl.
I think he is running that, but he's only coming up for a day, so he's a little perturbed that we may have our soiree on Saturday because I think he has to go back to life or something on Saturday.
That means we have to give Mr. Hobbs a little special something on Friday, and we can't just let the man go without. That's not fair.
Like a swirly?
Maybe. Maybe something nicer than that. Anyway, we got to do something for him if he's gonna cruise all the way up just for a day, run some kick-ass gaming, and head back. I mean, that's worthy of something.
He's been trying to get me down to RockCon or what's Con or whatever it's called now. It used to be RockCon.
Okay,
and it's down in Illinois and it's in Rockford. And I said, well, I don't know. And then he's like, he copped an attitude on me. And in instant message, I said, "Easy there, crab ass." I'm like, I'll see what I can do. So,
all right. Well, we may have to make an appearance.
Yeah,
sweet.
RockCon.
Anything else for announcements, man?
No.
Let's get on.
Random Encounter, element of the show where we field emails, voicemails, and comments from social media. Got a few. I think Chris Schwarb has called in as well.
Oh, very cool. Should I start with Tom's?
Sure.
While you're getting that queued up.
Yes.
Sean's working the magic. That when Sean says, I think he called in means shit. I don't know if I have that queued up. So I will start with Tom Bagwell. Writes in about episode 97, the last one, about imprisoning PCs. I found imprisoning PCs can work nicely if it's only part of the group. It lets the rest try to break them out, hopefully. If you're feeling nice, it can be a PC whose player is out that session. Oh, that's always fun. I've also found that they're more accepting of capture if it's a villain or some type as opposed to the city guard. Less compunction about casualties on the way out, and easier on me as a GM to allow credible lapses in security. Good point, Tom. I like that. There is a piece there, right, where the city guard grabs you like, really, really? And there's a you dick DM type of thing that comes out. But if it's the bad guy doing it, you feel like it's part of the grander scheme or plot that's going on. Jim Fitzpatrick writes in also on this one, says, I wasn't sure I would like this episode, but I really did. Well, thank you, Jim. Awfully kind of you to say so. I haven't locked up the party in a long time, but if I did it now, I'd probably do it with the escape attempt being a foregone conclusion. You figure that the average NPC jail guard is some kind of nameless schlub and isn't going to stand a chance against a group of trained adventurers in most cases, even if the adventurers are roughed up and have no gear.
So I think Chris comments on this too. Let me double check and see if I can get this back on the air here.
Hey, Brett and Sean, it's Chris Shore. I haven't called you guys in a while. I've been participating on the Google Plus forums, but I was in the middle of the imprisonment episode 97, and as I'm listening, Brett has just finished saying that starting off the campaign in prison isn't much fun. Why not just start immediately after the breakout and pick up the action from there? And I get his point. I understand, that feels like that's when the action is. However, I do want to say that in the current D&D campaign I'm playing, it's the Underdark campaign, Princes of Darkness or something like that. I don't know. We're going to fight some demons and stuff. That one starts off in the prison and we break out. And the cool thing about that, like the prison scene, okay, I'll be honest. The prison stuff wasn't super fun. However, what it did, the guards were cruel to us. They killed some of the other people in the party, no PCs, and no players either, but they killed some of the other people in the, other prisoners. And what it did is it gave us a fear of these guys. So when they started chasing us, we were like, oh man, they are on our tail. We got to really stay ahead of them. And then B, it gave us a really good relationship with that enemy. So, that's kind of the one cool thing that I really liked about starting off in prison and then interacting with the organization that's imprisoned us. It helps build that animosity early. Yes, we knew we were going to escape, but we got a chance to develop that relationship there. So anyways, keep up the good work. Great show, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
That was good. Yeah. That was good stuff. I think the we touched on it last time, or at least I gave the whole, hey, it feels like kind of a railroad type of thing, or like, hey, it's a foregone conclusion. We've also talked about it before, is that if something feels very linear or whatever, as long as the scenery is good, as long as there's cool stuff to do along the way, oftentimes you can forgive something as long as it's not kind of ramrodded, like just really hard thrust at you. Like it's what Chris is describing, learning stuff, building animosity with NPCs, figuring out how things work and so forth. That's really good stuff. I like that because then it takes that from being a fine, we have to escape. Can't we just get past this bit and get on with the real adventure or whatever? It takes it and makes it a key component to the entire storyline or campaign, because what you learn and feel and experience and the reality that comes out at the table during that portion of the adventure, the imprisonment piece, sets the stage for everything else that comes afterwards because of all the great backstory that happens. So I like that. That's good stuff, Chris. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks, Tom, Jim, and Chris, all commenting on imprisoning PCs. Moving on, Jim also comments on Google Plus about play-by-post. Anyone out there in BS sphere do a play-by-post /forum/email kind of thing? One of my current games is stagnating a bit because we can't get together. Players on 2 different continents, which would probably bring about
is more common than I think I would have. Had you brought this up to me a couple years ago, I said, "Oh, how common is that?" But that happens a lot now.
Yeah, and I'm thinking we might try to migrate to the play-by-post rather than abandon it. if you do play by post, can you talk about how you've made it work, what sites you use, what alterations you make to your system, and anything that tripped you up, etc.?
So a couple
There's
people,
been a few comments.
a few people responded. I have done it before, and I started one not too long ago with my friends for a side little game of Avalon, and with works.
You have no friends.
Oh,
so this is made
that
up.
hurts.
I'm just kidding.
That hurts.
Brett has friends.
As long as my mom keeps sending the checks, everyone will still talk to me. Anyway, So one risk I have had with it, and this is what happened to me right now, is that I had a lot of energy and stuff going into it. We were pretty fast and furious, regular post, blah, blah, blah. And then it fell because a couple people couldn't respond in a quote unquote timely manner. One of the pieces that we didn't do this time around was say, hey, how often should we expect something to be posted? And it sounds like, it may be fairly heavy handed. Maybe this is a topic for an entirely different episode. But if you're going to play by post, if you're expecting everyone to respond once a week or engage in the storyline or something once a week or every other day or something, those expectations, that setting of that up front can be really helpful. And it stops like, okay, should I keep going because Brett hasn't bothered to respond yet? And then the rest of the players go off and do something. And then here comes Brett saying, oh, Sean, I'm back. I was on vacation. I forgot to tell you, or whatever the case is. So that can be just the amount of interaction you're expecting is important, I believe, to get that out front. The other thing that I have done is I tend to run, it's obviously theater to mind. I don't do a lot of maps. However, when I do posts on the Google Plus community, which is how I've done it recently, I will grab images for a scene. Like if it's a house or a bad guy or a monster, I'll put a picture up there because it grabs the player's attention. And because it is all theater of the mind, I don't want to bog it down with die rolling. So what I do is I try to lean into my Amber training from when I used to run Amber diceless and narrate our way through it. If the players give me good narration, there's no reason that they can't succeed. And if they miss something in my narration, then hey, they failed, or if they leave an opening or whatever the case is. So I tend to run it completely diceless and heavy narrative, and still get some pretty touch and go moments there, but I don't do it with the dice. I don't have the players roll dice and tell me what they rolled or anything like that. I know some people have done that. It's just not my thing. Sean?
Yeah, I've played play by post one campaign, and it was via Yahoo Groups, and it was with, I think it was like 5 people I didn't know, ever met. They were all different kinds of locations. The individual that was running it was Eberron D&D 3.0. Had a very well-defined campaign kind of standard on what to expect, laid out those expectations to the players.
As far as, was that like confrontation? Hey, this is how we'll deal with conflict. This is how how many times you should post, all that stuff?
Yep.
Wow, nice.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So how often is someone expected to post? How combat is going to run, or any type of conflicts and the mechanics involved. So even like, and the way that it was positioned. So if we were playing Dark Lantern, so it was more espionage in D&D 3.0 World of Eberron. So we would go and investigate something that we were kind of mission driven. And if it was, okay, I go into the room or I check the room or whatever the case is, and he would say, he would narrate it in the text saying somebody's coming down the hallway, you hear footsteps, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden they enter the room, or they blast the door open. Give me your rolls. Now you are now in combat. Give me your rolls, or your actions. And the way he would do it is if something like that turned out, you would end up putting out 3 actions when you post. So he had all this kind of nuances put into place. I didn't finish it to the end, and he had said that he was going to try to publish something formally around his kind of method. Now, I don't think he would have been able to do it for Eberron necessarily, but I think he was looking to...
Well, just how he does it and say, hey, this is how I've done this. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Or even just what the results were. Anyways, so it's not that easy. If you want a good... It's funny because like literally the time Jim asked, like 2 days before that, I listened to NPC Cast, and their June 17th episode was on Play by Post, and they interviewed somebody on their show about Play by Post because that's what they do. They actually run a Play by Post website.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, and I cannot remember the person's name, but they were interviewing him, but having a dialogue around Play by Post, the advantages, disadvantages, pitfalls to.
I've done for me, I think the other piece, and when you mentioned the Black Lantern's more espionage-y, for my experiences with it, it has been more role-playing, talky, investigative versus mass battles of, your group of 5 people against a horde of goblins who are supported by a phalanx of hobgoblins supported by the drow. I have not done that just because it becomes a narrative nightmare to try to get everything unless you do larger blocks and chunks. But anyway, so I tend to run them small. I guess what I'm saying is small conflicts, small platforms.
And if you can get players that are decent about narrating what they're attempting to do in a very well-written prose, it goes a long ways. And I think, in my opinion, I was telling my group, I'm in this play-by-post, and my buddy was like, it's just collaborative storytelling, which in some instances, I guess you could say that. But my argument was that it could be more immersive than playing at the table. And I'll stipulate that by saying, because when you're reading things, like we do Roll20, and even before Roll20, I ran a couple sessions using just Skype, no video. And the no Skype, no video, you don't have any video to distract you, and it's audio. And when you will need to hear things, you need to listen pretty closely. When you're at the table, I mean, granted, you could always have the person repeat themselves, but it seems as though, I don't know why, but online it seems kind of faux pas to kind of, can you say that again? Can you say that again? But at the table, it's not a big deal. So what I'm getting at is when you do play by post and it's in text and you're reading it, you really read kind of everything that's going on, soaking it in much more.
Yeah. The other piece is that, what Sean is saying is that if you're very fortunate, you have people that are very skilled writers. I've got a couple of guys in my group. Beta's a very good author. Lenny's a good author, and good grammar, good sentence structure, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to get like this. I am Neil Gaiman or somebody.
As long as it's clear.
But you just have to be clear and you forgive the misspellings, forgive the occasional comma faux pas, but it has to be, decent, newsprint type language. And, but there is something kind of cool about that because it pops up and there is a level of anticipation for me when I am running a active and a lot of fun play-by-post. If you want the next post, I'm like checking it. Oh, Aaron posted. Oh, this is fucking cool. Da-da-da-da-da. This happened. Oh, Alpha did something. Bam, bam, bam. This is what happened. It's interesting. You are waiting, really anticipating that other person to do something because you want to see what comes next. And it's not like, hey, dude, your turn. Go. The distractions, I think, to Sean's point, can be minimal, at least for me anyway, because I'm just sitting there hitting refresh, waiting for the next person to post so I can keep on with it. But might be an interesting topic to carry on later, dude.
I'm sure.
I think it's fun, and I've had a lot of good times with them. So, Jim, I tell you what, man, if you end up doing it, I would love to hear, and I think the rest of our listeners would love to hear how you're doing it. If you've got a methodology, if you've found someone who has a system that you like or something, that would be cool to hear about because it's a really good way to do as you're doing, playing with people on 2 different continents and having engaging storytelling. It could be really cool.
Yeah, listen to that episode by NPC Cast, if only to find out what platform that individual runs, because it is catered towards play-by-post. So when you have side discussions, you can manipulate it that way, and it really is set up to drive that type of, or to facilitate that type of game.
And that's the June 17th episode of NPC Cast.
Yeah.
Get it at your local podcatcher.
That's right. You're welcome, NPC Cast.
Tim DeShane from RI posts on Google+. Sup, BSers? I've been thinking about gaming as therapy. When my PTSD got bad, once I got over the anxiety to leave the house, I threw myself back into gaming. For a while, I found little enjoyment in the things that I used to love. Once that passed, gaming seemed to really help. Running games was beneficial in reducing the cognitive problems I was experiencing, memory trouble, putting thoughts into words, etc. It helped my social anxiety. Not sure if you guys could get a whole show out of this topic, but it might be interesting. Tim put this up on Google Plus. I responded. One of the guys I game with currently, and I've talked to Sean about this off the mics. He's ex-Army, and he bluntly, he got blown up, right? So he didn't lose limbs or anything bad, but it did not go good for him, and he has problems. He's got PTSD. He's got some medical issues and different things and joint pain and so forth that happened, when the Humvee flipped and all that crap. It's not a good story. However, he is an awesome gamer, and the thing that his wife was so happy about for him was when he started gaming again. When he's the guy I'm running Middle Earth for, my MERP game, one of the guys I'm running MERP for. When he started playing his MERP, Rollmaster, and getting back into gaming, and he came to EverCon last year, his wife has pulled us aside and said, this is a remarkable difference. He's doing great. This is awesome. It's really good for him. And I know I've met other men and women that have had similar problems, not necessarily military related, but other issues. And gaming is that place where they can go with a good group of people, and they can just kind of throw everything out there, and is a really good mental level set. And I think that gaming as therapy it's not only interesting, but I honestly believe it's 100% real. I mean, I'm seeing it in action with my buddy, and how it makes his life a better thing, and makes him more interested in things, and helps him he's a super social guy, and it helps him maintain that, right? And I see some really cool magical things. I hate to use that phrase magical, but it's just magical to watch this happen. And I believe I'm privileged to be a part of it, not to be overly sappy, but it's really cool to be able to do something that I love doing and then helping the people I'm gaming with. That's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, what else is there to say about it other than I know Pure Mongrel is studying. I think in Australia I think he's kind of looking into some of this stuff of the psychology piece of it. And then,
yes, yeah, he's posted about that on our G Plus site before.
And I know Chris D from here in Madison, who's an instructor over here at one of the local colleges. And I know him. He's actually done a thesis, I think, on gaming. And I want to say was it women in gaming? I don't know. I call him Professor Egghead affectionately. But he commented on it as well and talked about it. And I know that he is more on the professional side where he would have some insight into it because of his degree, his PhD in psychology. But it's crazy how beneficial gaming can be, whether it's autism or PTSD. A lot of things are coming to fruition, how the hobby can benefit. I know depression is something that people succumb to, and I know gaming has probably helped, maybe in a different way. But I think I don't know all the psychology interactions, and I mean, I am far from a doctor.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is one of those topics that when Sean and I have
armchair.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm like, I'm as good about this as I am as a quarterback for the Packers, right? I've got to,
Right.
that is just about as far as we go. I think, generally speaking, though, the cool part is it's the concept of it's more than a game. Excuse me, it's more than a game, especially to certain people.
Well, that's what Victor said that. He's
exactly.
Like, it's good to see my hobby is even more and way above being a hobby.
Yes. Yeah, Victor
Right?
Wyatt.
Something to that effect.
Yes, he did. And it's really awesome, and it helps me kind of stay grounded. Sometimes I'm having a lot of fun, and I think, it's got to be fun, and fun is all that matters. And sometimes it is, right? I mean, fun really matters. If you're not having a good time gaming, it sucks. But there's something really cool to understanding the other players that you have. You don't have to get into everybody's psyche. Excuse me. You don't have to know that, Brett, when I was getting divorced, 13, 15 years ago, what the hell it was, Christ, I lose track of time. But, when that was happening, you're bummed out. You're kind of depressed about things. It's not working. Not everybody at the table needs to know all the intricacies of what's going on in Brett's head. However, they all knew that while we're there gaming, everything else fell away, and this was just a great place to be. It was really helpful to me. Now, granted, that's nothing compared to PTSD and other problems that people have had. And if this is a thing that can help people in any way, that is just fucking awesome. I don't know any other way to say it other than not cussing, but it's just really, really cool that something as apparently mundane as sitting across the table, rolling dice, and fighting and talking to imaginary things helps you become a better person and fight through a struggle. That's just cool. That's so cool that we can be a part of that.
Well, and then the other thing is that, we have had such a stigma attached to it when we were growing up. And now, I'm at work, I tell people I'm a gamer, and they go, oh, I mentioned this before, Xbox, PS2. I'm like, no, I am a gamer. Oh, you a board game, Monopoly. No, I play tabletop role-playing games. And they kind of look at me cross-eyed, and I'm like, pen, paper, dice, Dungeons and Dragons. They're like, as soon as I say D&D, it's like, oh, ding, But the thing is that the when we're talking about this specifically, and you get somebody that kind of like scoffs at it or guffaw, and but it really truly is a type of therapy for somebody that can help them deal and cope with whatever it is that they are having to deal with. And gaming is a particular an avenue that they can use.
It's healthy, right?
Talk about like shut the hell up, right?
Yeah.
That's like, hey, you're being kind of an asshole here because you don't know anything about this hobby.
Yeah.
Everybody gets their kind of own thing out of it, but if you're gonna like poo-poo it and you don't really know what that is, like especially when it comes to something as serious as PTSD and autism, etc., like we mentioned, come on, like, do you even know what the hell you're talking about anymore?
No, absolutely. It's really interesting, and it's one of those things the only reason I hesitate to go like full bore in is I think, Sean, would have to get ourselves an expert of some sort.
We gotta get somebody that
because otherwise I'm going to use Sean and Brett. We misuse terms to begin with, and I'm going to inadvertently offend somebody who I do not mean to offend. But
well, we're not. We don't have. I've never been clinically diagnosed with PTSD or autism or
nope.
So, and then we haven't gone to 6 to 8 years of
schooling
to understand psychology well enough and psychiatry and all this other stuff. So, for us to sit up here and kind of, gaming we can bullshit about, but this stuff's kind of serious.
It's very serious. Yeah. I think the key thing I believe that you'd agree with me on here is that it's helped me in a number of tough times. I'm pretty sure it's been a rock for you in some instances. It's a consistent. Sure. It's a great connection and a release and a reset valve and so forth. Just for my petty mundane shit I deal with, if that is at any way able to elevate and help somebody with serious problems, that's just fucking awesome. It is so cool.
Right. For me, it gets me through a week, or it prevents me from smashing somebody in the face.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm not in jail because I game. I should tell people that I game and roll dice so I don't punch you in the face and go to jail.
I'm killing 5 orcs tonight, so I don't kill you tomorrow, motherfucker. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
All right. Let's get to the main topic.
Let's do it.
What are we talking about this week, Brett?
Well, I want to talk a little bit about the pressure that game masters have around failure or trying not to fail.
Pressure.
I thought you were going to go Queen and Bowie on me.
I went Billy Joel.
Oh, that's all right. That's good too.
Pressure.
Anyhow, we have a drive. If you're behind the screen, to use that analogy as always, if you're behind the screen, you really want every game to be just goddamn amazing. You don't want to fail. You want it to be a great game every time. And I know I take it really personally if I'm like, God, that session didn't feel good. Oh my God, what did I do wrong? Oh, Jesus, this is killing me. I try to figure stuff out, and someone goes, well, yeah, actually, Brett, it did kind of suck. You took away our agency for 3 hours, you jackass. They don't normally say jackass, but like, damn, I did that. Oh my God, I failed. I mentioned that before. And it's a piece that we have to embrace. I think we're going to fail. We're going to try something new. I'm going to pick up something that Chris Nizek says, hey, here's a deal. If I were you, Brett, you're going to run Dungeon World the first time, I'd do X. Do it like this. I give it a go, and say it fails on me. Oh, God, it failed. What did I do wrong? Failure is a part of the learning curve for gaming. And I think there is the pressure on game masters, even some players, we'll talk players angle as well a little bit, but I think there's a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves, and sometimes the players and other people around us put on us, and that they get pissy. We're like, well, there's a hole in the story. Oh, there's a hole over here. And the negativity that can come with it can be pretty brutal. So just want to talk about some of the different things around that and see where we land with it. That cool with you?
It is. And okay, yes. I will leave it at that.
You'll leave it at that.
Well, I was going to start just going crazy, and I figure maybe there's some structure on this.
Well, there could be. We'll see how it goes.
We'll see how. Yeah, who knows?
Maybe if we have structure on this, it'll be the first time in 98 episodes. We're going to start. That'll be
episode.
Our first.
Episode 98 on is pretty good. There was some structure. Yeah.
Everything previous to that, I don't know what the hell they did. Anyhow, so I think there is the sound. This might be very rudimentary and whatnot, but I think it's worth remembering. Trying something new at the gaming table and having it fail is totally fine. And I think there's a number of reasons why that's okay. And it's kind of the, what did you learn from it? So one of the things I'd heard a lot about, for example, was sound effects. But guys I knew they were back in the day were making mixtapes. They're trying to burn CDs. They're trying to do different things. And even now with MP3s and iTunes and different playlists and stuff, oh, we should do this. We can do that. I have one adventure that I can run with sound. Otherwise, I can't do it. Every time I do it, it falls flat. I've tried it a couple different times. It has failed every time except for that one game I run, Digging for a Dead God by John Wick. Anything other than that just dies on me. And I've learned from that. I'm like, you know what? It's a distraction for me as the game master. I've spent too much time trying to make sure I've got the right sound as opposed to keeping the table going. I'm not doing it. I've learned that if other people can master it and their brains are wired that way or whatever, good on them. But it's a thing I've tried I can't do. I know what it would take to do it, and I'm not prepared to do it. I know it's something I'm not necessarily good at, and doggone it, that's okay. I'll just. So
you're talking about failing as a player as a game master.
Yeah,
and that is one of your shortcomings is being able to.
Well, I'm not saying
that piece.
I'm just saying I'm like, that's a thing I couldn't do, but I learned like, okay, I'm not doing it wrong per se. I just don't like doing it. I don't care for it. It didn't do anything. My players, when we talked about it afterwards, like, hey, you know what? It was just distracting. And I learned.
So this is different than, is this one of the same discussions around players failing or player characters failing? Or both?
Players and game masters, not characters.
Players and game masters failing.
Game masters. Come on,
well, it's good that you clarified that because I know I was going to start to go off the deep end. Okay. Players and game masters failing. Yes. Gotcha. Yes. I apologize.
Oh, dude.
I was opening a beer while you were talking earlier. It's my brain my brain. It's hey, I can do one thing. Mind. Yes, exactly.
So I think along those lines is that what I was trying to do with sound in my games. So I was trying to find a better way to engage the players and really have them pay attention. And I found a better way to do that was modulate my own voice, use accents, change the pitch, the tone, volume, all those things. I stood up when I run games. I stand. I learned that because I'm like, you know what? I can't. It's easier for me to stand, modulate my voice in different ways to get people's attention, raise tension at the table, drop it down, mellow things out, whisper here, yell there, scream here, make a noise, roar, do something, than it is for me to fumble along.
Sounds like my house on a Friday night.
I don't want to hear about that. He has a lot of pets. That's what we talk about, pets. Anyway, than it is for me to fumble with a music system of some kind to try to invoke the same type of feeling. Like, you know what? A better way for me to do this would be to amp up what I'm already doing. So through failing at being able to figure out how to do the sound effects thing, I went, you know what I can do? I can do this other thing, and I can get the same end result, but a way that works for Brett. So I failed doing it one way. I've succeeded in another. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh.
Come on.
I see. It's kind of like I'm short in this, and I have to compensate for it, which makes me better in that.
That too, yeah.
That's crazy.
This is why I game, so I don't punch you.
That's exactly right.
This is
See how
why I game.
therapeutic this is?
This is very, yes.
I mean, we have a podcast to take it to another level
Yeah.
because we are that high strung.
I might have to go kick my dog when I'm done talking to you.
Well, we better keep talking until that
I get
passes
rid of that?
over.
So Sean, does this make sense what I'm talking about? Is that
It does now that I know what the hell you're talking about.
You and your logic and reason.
I one of the things that I brought I've been thinking of is that I'm probably kind of a shitty GM.
Wow, I didn't want to say that out loud.
Well, knowing is half the battle, right? Like being self-aware.
Well, that's the thing about being willing to fail, though, is that you're like, look, I want to try to run this game. I think this would be really cool, and you get done with it, and being self-aware enough to go, that didn't work.
But
what didn't work? How come I failed?
Well, so podcasting kind of runs into that, and there's people that are like, I need it to be absolutely perfect, and it's like, no, you have to get it out. Like if you keep analyzing and figuring out like you have everything that you need to, that's going to like planning for game masters. Like, I got to plan everything. I got to be ready for everything because Brett is going to be the one player. He's going to bring up something. I got to be prepared for whatever they bring up. And it's like, no, you don't. You don't. And that's going back to the failing piece, right? See how I got there? That long,
you did. That was nice.
Yeah, but I tie it all together, man. But one thing. So getting back to my original point, where I may be a shitty GM. Let's just put it there. I may be a shitty GM. One of the things that I haven't done, which I have recorded, I've recorded our sessions for Star Wars: Edge of the Empire, and we may release those to Patreons. I don't know. We may have to see if there's going to be a potential lawsuit involved first.
We have to censor the crap out of that. We got pretty nasty.
But nonetheless, I find listening to our podcast to be beneficial because if I stumble over words or I have a lot of filler words, I want to hear that. And if I hear that, I think I can speak. I could become a better speaker.
No, that makes sense.
Having said that, if I listen to our Edge of the Empire sessions and go, holy shit, I am a really shitty GM, I can not have to solicit feedback from the players, which may bruise my awesome, ultra superior ego.
You can listen to it in the quiet of your own home, in the dark, in a closet with a bottle of Jack, going, "Oh my God, if only I knew what I was doing."
Pretty much.
Okay, I get that.
Yeah, right. Pretty much.
But I mean,
but I could warrant feedback, but I don't know how honest and true it would be. Right? I mean, maybe it's like, oh, we got to sugarcoat it a little bit because we don't want to squish Sean's ultra superior ego.
Yeah, no, I get it. But I think what I want to push here is that we'll read a thing like, so if you go back episode 1, listen forward, as we've always said, there are a number of different tips or tricks that Sean and I have thrown out using the episode around living gear, the episodes that we talked about, even one episode, I think it was episode 80 when we talked to Ron Blessing and Christian Serrano, and we talked to those guys around Savage Worlds. They threw out some tips and tricks about, hey, how to keep the Benny economy flowing, how to do this, how to do that. And you're like, okay, cool, I'm going to take that to my Savage Worlds table. I'm going to give it a shot. And you try it and it just dies on you and it doesn't pan out. There's that feeling that, oh my God, I suck. And I mean, not everybody takes things quite that personally, like Sean or Brett does, or other folks. Yes, there you go. Speaking of slow on the soundboard.
I got Gus running the soundboard.
Yeah, that's Gus. He sucks. Anyhow,
he's trying to do drums and soundboard at the same time, and he can't.
He's got a hard time.
Yeah. Like, guy's like 100,000 years old, man.
How about that? Damn it, kids. Anyway, I think by trying these different tips and tricks and stuff, there is, and we've mentioned this before, at least I believe we have, pick one, pick two. You're going to pick up a book like Focal Point, Phil Vecchione in on that with the Engine Publishing guys. And if you pick that up, there's a ton of great data in there. You pick up some Robin's Laws of Good Game Mastering. You pick up John Wick's Play Dirty stuff. There's all sorts of different ideas and advice. Gnome Stew, great ideas, great advice. Trying to slam it all in at once, perhaps gonna recipe for failure.
Shit, man, just listen to that frickin', I don't know, 3/4 of the goddamn RPG podcasts out there. I mean,
yeah, it's
you're
all
gonna take all this shit in. I mean, it's way too much.
It is. It's a ton.
Yeah.
The cool thing is, wow, that was neat. You make a note, say, I'm going to try this next game. And if it fails, just go, that didn't work, you know?
Right.
And if you're fortunate enough to be able to figure out why it didn't work, either listening to yourself as Sean recorded us, or having people give you honest, asshole-ish feedback, like, hey, you know what? I think it was okay, but it was really distracting that you did X. This concept of, critical hits against my armor was okay. It sounded really cool, but I just didn't like it. It's almost that, hey, we try a new game system and everyone thinks, hey, this is going to be the best thing since sliced bread. They play it and go, you know what? I don't like this. I don't like the funky dice. I don't like having to do this thing. I like doing this other thing better. And you're going to fail, and that is okay. Part of what brought this topic to my mind was seeing the different posts on Facebook and Google Plus about, I really want to make sure I do this right. Am I playing this game appropriately? Game masters and players, are we doing this right? I get it that we want to make sure we're playing the game as it's meant to be played. I get it that we want to make sure that we understand the rules and we're using them appropriately. But when I read this, I feel when I'm reading a lot of these things that they're like desperately trying, I don't want to fail. I want this game to be perfect. I want this game to be just fucking epic and just mind-blowing amazingness. And I'll tell you right here, I'm here to tell you, man, I've run a ton of games in, my forever years of doing this, and I have a large number of them that were not all that good. Storylines that just failed. I mean, I ran,
right, Brett, tell him.
I ran Vampire for like 15 years, and there's a number of storylines in there that nobody remembers for a damn good reason, because they sucked. There's a number of really cool storylines. We can count those on two hands. That was really cool. But through that time period, there were a number of them that were short.
Two hands, Brett?
Yeah, two hands.
Wow.
That's how fucking good I am. Anyhow,
two hands. Wow.
Anyway, it didn't stop me, right? What you tried to do is pick something from them that you can learn and carry on with it. And that, I think, is where guys like Sean and I, or other podcasters, Chris and Phil and other folks out there talking about different tips or ideas, is saying, hey, I failed at this thing. If I were you, I'd try this because this worked for me. Chances are it might work for one of you out there. If we've got 5 listeners, one of the 5 of you might find it useful, or all 5 of you will try it, and you're like, God damn, that didn't work at all. However, if you're smart with it, you'll take it and go, that didn't work. Why didn't it work? I was distracted. It didn't resonate with the players. If I changed it, or the players wanted to flip it, okay, maybe we need to do something different. But tearing that apart yourself and doing a little deconstruction of what failed can help you learn from it and make it better next time. And if we don't fail, you're going to be stuck playing the same D&D you did when you were in high school, the same Savage Worlds game you did when you first started. You're not going to be able to push yourself in your skills. Some people might not find any need to push their skills or desire to improve as game master or player. But for those of us who take this hobby as seriously as Sean and I do, that we dedicate, every Sunday to do this thing, it's worth it. It's worth it to put the time and the effort in to try and know that I'm going to try something new and it might fucking fail on me, and I'll be okay with that because I'm going to learn from it.
Yeah, I wonder if that's why actual plays seem to get quite a draw, which is surprising to me because there's very few that I can really sink into, and I think it's part of me. For whatever reason, when I listen to podcasts, it's fine and better or easier, but when and I should say regular talky podcasts, but when it's actual play, I don't get into them quite as deep. That's just me, regardless. But I think a lot of them have a pretty big following, and maybe it's because of that. Maybe they want to listen to the game and then how the game master runs it and listens that way.
Well, we've talked about this before, right? Is that if you want to learn how to run a game, I've never played Dungeon Crawl Classics before. Is there an actual play out there? I like to listen to it and see how they quote unquote do it right. Whatever it is, that is probably a draw for a number of folks out there. I know it would be for me. But I guess it's the search to not fail, right? You don't want to have a bad, horrible, god awful game experience where the players flip the table at you, throw dice at you until you suck. But I think the main piece here, and I'm overstating it again, but is that we're going to fail, and that's okay. And I think then, as game masters, we can accept it. We could say, hey, here's a couple tips or tricks that we've tried that have really worked for us. I remember reading, I think it was John Tynes, who the Puppet Land, and he had a website. God, this is forever ago, where he listed out things he had done as a game master. I believe I've talked about this on the show before, where he talked about crazy modulating his voice, yelling, screaming, throwing a chair across the room, like pointing at a player and like yelling at them, kind of very aggressive. And if you've met me, you know I can be a touch aggressive when needed. And Sean's giving me the don't hit me face. Anyway, knowing when to amp that up or yell or do different things, that was a tip I picked up from there and a couple other places about modulating my voice. And after I tried the sound effects thing, went, fuck that. I can't do that. I can yell though. I can whisper. I can fake cry. I can do a British accent. I can try to talk with a slight French accent or something.
You
I could
can
try.
Fake cry?
No, you just, oh my God, just something.
Oh,
You mockingly do it. It's kind of, as Ed Greenwood has said, it's kind of ham acting. You amp it up. You chew the scenery with it. But the point is that comes easier for me than artificial or not, I don't control, having to control other keyboards and players and other things to do. And I think one of the reasons that I've really been able to grow in that space is because most of the players that have stuck with me and that I've played with for the past 20 plus years in my group are all really good at letting me fail. We've come through, they said, you know what, Brett, this sounds like a really cool game. When the first time I brought Trail of Cthulhu to the group, I ran my book Hounds of London game. No one had ever played it before. I was the only person that ever really read the rules. Kevin had read them, but he came in later. I said, I really like this. I think it'll be fun. And, excuse me, they were a little rough at the beginning. Lenny was a little tough on, I don't understand these rules or what's this or that. But once we got into it, they gave me a chance to run it and push and see what we could do with it. And we all had a really great time with it. I've played other games when I tried to run Savage Worlds for them. It failed. I didn't do something right. And I talked about that when you, Ron, and Christian and I were talking. It was like abysmal fucking flame out. And everyone let me fail. We got out there, we tried, we thought we knew what was going on. They thought this would all work, and it didn't. It just completely died. And no one went, you suck, and I wasn't booted off the table. They went, wow, that didn't work. Well, hopefully we can figure it out and come back to it. Let's do something else. And I think that type of camaraderie at the table is the thing that allows me to keep failing and go, wow, I tried that. That didn't freaking work, and keep moving forward.
I got a question.
Sean doesn't have that, though, because every time Sean fails, we just zap him.
That's true. Electric shock therapy. You can turn things around quite quickly.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Like through electric shock therapy. Hey, I got a question for you.
Okay.
So do you think that there are individuals that are out there that just cannot GM? That it is inherently impossible for them to be... Not to be a game master, because all you have to do is pick up a book and like run a game. That's different. What I'm
to
maybe even, I mean, good is kind of relative too, but I don't know. So I've worked in customer service before. There are some people that cannot empathize with customers to save their life, right? They aren't very good customer. Like when you get graded on customer service, it's like, did you show empathy? Did you understand and listen to what they had to say? And there are some that are just
how do you measure
better.
On these immeasurable things?
Right.
Yes.
And there are some people that are just better at it than others.
It's that joke of the you could sell, you could sell dirt to farmers. You could sell, water to a sailor. You've got stuff. How the hell is this guy able to sell used cars to anybody? How is this possible? There is, I think, one of the cool things about our hobby, and from a failing perspective, the other piece I believe is that when I've tried to run my style of game the way I run it for a number of different groups over the years. And I've had a number of people, I've talked about this before as well, who've come into my gaming group and then have faded away for a number of different reasons. Time, they can't make it, they moved away, whatever. But the main reasons people are not still with me is because they don't like what I'm doing or they don't like the rest of the players because of how we game. So I believe that as a game master, if you have a style, if your style is what I would consider dry, boring, by the book, but if I take a bunch of negative connotative words and cram them into this is how Sean runs, God damn it, which is not how you run, by the way. But if I were to say this is this guy named Sean P. Kelly, and this is how he runs, this sucks. if you found the right group, you'd be fine.
Yeah, I could see that.
I believe that, because there are groups that old grognards out there who like to play a certain type of OSR game that let the dice fall where they may, do this, do that. They want a certain approach that other people may find abysmal or appalling or just the worst, most boring goddamn dungeon crawly bullshit in the world. If they find the right group, they're in heaven.
Yeah.
And I think it's not only failing at your skill set, like, oh my God, I didn't do this right. And sometimes it's like, I don't have the right group. And that's where, from the player's perspective, you need to be able to say, look, I'm going to work with this game master. This is what they're doing. If they're going to play in a way that I don't like to play, I either adjust my play style or I might have to bow out or maybe not play with this group because, hey, Brett runs like this. He's got 6 other players in there. Who the hell am I as a new person to tell them that Tabby can't play because I don't like what she's doing? She's been here for 20 years. You know, you're not going to kick her out. But anyway, short version, to get back to your to the actual question, I don't think that it is a bad game master. I think it's a game master who hasn't found a group who plays like him yet. Or
so
her.
Failing to realize that would be a failure.
Yes. That whole concept of my group sucks or they don't understand me, it's almost a weird prima donna-ness where you're like, hey, look, this is how I game master. You better fucking get used to it. I just let the dice fall and you all die. And then if I'm gaming with you, Tim Jensen, and a couple other folks, I don't think Tim's going to like that too much. I met Tim at Gamehole last year, and based on what he says in our community, I don't think Tim's not going to be old school Gygaxian dungeon crawl guy, at least from what I can read what he's got. Maybe, and Tim, you'll comment.
I think it depends on what game you're playing.
Exactly. But if you're like, look, I like to play AD&D first edition, God damn it, that's all I like to play. And you got a group of folks who are like, well, I want to play Savage Worlds. I want to play this small book game. I want to play Night Witches. You've got the wrong group. And refusing to adjust, right, and say, well, I like to play D&D. And the group might say, well, yeah, okay, we'll give you a shot to play D&D. They play D&D for a campaign, go, wow, that was fun. We'd like to now do something else. Sean, could you run Star Wars again? Realizing that you're not the guy to run Star Wars. You're not the person who can run any of those games. I would be a shitty Star Wars game master. I think I'm a good game master, but I would be a shit Star Wars game master because I don't know anything about the fucking universe. I vaguely remember bits and pieces from movies I've seen, but the IP that you guys know and the way the system works and everything else, that's not my style. That's not what I do. So understanding what you do well and what you don't do is big. I totally went off the reservation there. I don't know where
I think you're fine, dude.
Oh my God. Where am I? What happened?
I think you're fine. No, I think that's
on?
part of the deal, though, too, is like failing to realize that you may not be GMing the right game, or maybe you're not GMing to the right group, the right game with the right group. I don't know. It could be a few different things at play.
So I'm talking a lot here, as usual. So I'm going to throw it back at you, Sean. What do you?
Go ahead, man. I'll catch it.
What have you?
Hey, give it to me, man.
What have you tried to do that's failed? A new thing you've tried that's failed, and what have you new thing they tried that won for you?
Oh shit!
Give me one of each. Tell me. I'm
seriously.
Just so folks know, I've been interviewing people a lot lately. So
have you? Now you're in the interview mode.
I'm in interview mode.
Nice. Tell me about a time
exactly
that you could not get the customer to agree with your ass.
And just so you know, when I do interview, I never ask those questions. I hate those questions. Hate them.
How questions are good though?
Yeah. Oh, that's totally different. But tell me about a time.
Situation.
Bore the crap out of me. Anyhow, go for it.
Can you repeat them so I have time to think about them again?
So what have you tried that you failed at? Give me something.
What have I tried that I have failed at?
Yeah, you tried a new trick. You went, hey, I read this thing, or this guy on this site says I should do this deal, and I'm trying it, and it's a abysmal goddamn flameout. I'm never doing that again.
I've tried running a campaign with the thought in mind that it will never end, or it'll be very, very, very long, and then I go, nah, it's not gonna. No.
So you tried running the never-ending campaign?
Maybe not never-ending. That may be just a little bit too much, but starting off going, this is going to be the greatest campaign in the world.
Expectations way high.
This is going to be a super awesome 1 through level 20 D&D Pathfinder.
Not so good.
My attention span, man. I cannot play and run a game for... I don't know what it is. I cannot play a game. I cannot run a game for
A year.
Which is weird. Well, I mean, I played Living Force for a long time, but I don't know why. I honestly don't know how I did that over multiple years.
So if you, I mean, you like D&D 5e, right?
Yeah, I think it's a fine game.
So if I were to say, Sean, you're going to run a D&D 5e game, I want to run a campaign, we're going to play every week for a year, you'd be like, oh, fuck no.
Actually, it's funny. I think playing may be different. And it
or running.
depends on,
Let's say you're going to run. You're going to run for a year.
Maybe every week.
Every week for a year.
Every week for a year. 4 hours.
Absolutely.
4 hours.
I guess what I'm pointing at is that you said that the attention span thing, and if that's true,
dude, I got gamer ADD, man. Squirrel.
But that's important though, right? Because then when you when you're running the Star Wars game, you're like, look, it's going to go from here to here,
right?
And that's where it goes. And we know right now we have one session left. We know that. That's totally fine.
Well, it could go on forever.
Well, it could.
And it will. It's not like the end of, like, it's not the end, but it will be the end until we call it back. Until I get a fire burning in my ass that I want to run and play it and pick it up where it ended and see where it goes.
That's the classic, hey, we'll retire these characters for now. Doon, 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 to be continued. And we pick it up 5 books later, or you never know when.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I could fail to realize this and force the issue, which would result in shitty games.
Exactly.
Yes.
Because I've done a similar thing where I set out, I was going to run a really short, this is how I got into running Vampire for 15 years, was I set out at one point, I was going to run a really short stint of games, like 1-2 nights, maybe a 1 or 2 night stand type of thing. This is all we're going to do. And at the end of the first session, the group was like totally into it. And I'm like trying to wrap this up. And they looked at me like, what are you doing? Why are you forcing this? Let's just keep going. I'm like, okay. So it's kind of that how do I do this? If you, from your perspective anyway, if you realize that, look, I've got gamer ADD and I like to play D&D, and when I'm done, or I like to run D&D, I'm done with D&D now. I'd like to go run this other thing. You might as well acknowledge that and not sign yourself up to run
and the
entire Against the Giant series, all the
and
way
I have done that.
Demon Web Pits.
I've done that with groups. Like, hey man, I'm going to start a new campaign. They're like, yeah, not interested because you're probably going to fizzle out in a few months. And that's fine. And if I just position it that way, like, hey, we're going to run this for up until this end of this arc or a time period, and then call it a day. But I think I've misled people.
This is sad. So what have you tried new or improved, or a tip or a trick that you've tried that has worked out for you? They're like, hey, I do this
said, hey, we're only going to play until this long, and that's going to be it. We're going to wrap it up no matter what the hell's going on.
Nothing. You haven't like read or anything like, hey, Gnome Stew said this or anything like that?
Oh, God.
I'm not just pimping Gnome Stew here.
Oh, problem with me and reading is like, man, you want to put this guy to sleep, dude? Just give me a book, which is really, it sucks. I hate that.
Well, you listen to more podcasts than I do.
I do.
A gaming podcast as well.
I do.
Have you heard anything from them? Go, I'm going to do this, and then tried it and it worked.
I gotta take some notes. No, I don't. I gotta sit. I mean, I listen to them and I take little nuggets away, but I haven't. It's kind of weird, man. I feel as though I'm in a GM rut, and I'll explain this in a second. Well, I'll explain it right now. What the hell? But I think it's kind of like, dude, I hate to say it. We've been in corporate America, and you get those people that like, that's the way we've always done it. And I got a feeling that some of the habits I have at the age I have, or the age I am, I don't know, man. There's some things that I'm like, okay, we're going to start off, and this is the way it starts. And then it's going to go this way. And then it's all kind of like within Sean's box. And I got to get out of that box. I got to get into listening and maybe reading some of the stuff that, Engine Publishing has put out, and Johnny Wick and all those guys, and just sit down and say, because the thing is like GMing to me, there's a core piece of GMing as I relate to GMing in the traditional sense, which is like D&D games, Edge of the Empire, Star Wars, anything with a game master. And I'm not talking about story games like Fiasco or some of the other ones that may not be heavily related to GM Fiat. So having said that, I have to kind of get out of that space, but at the same time, you're in that space. Does that make even sense?
Well, it does. I mean, I guess there is so you're not afraid to fail, which is cool.
I just feel as though I'm doing the same shit every time I run a game. And
Yeah.
if it's the same shit, which is fine, but I don't think it's doing my players or myself any favors without expanding myself.
So this kind of goes back to Tim's email to it, or Google Plus. We should have a therapist here right now. This is turning into a therapy session
Jesus
for
Christ,
Sean and
I
Brett.
guess. I know, right?
But I guess what I'm getting at, though, is you're saying you're not afraid to fail at it, which is cool. You want
Yeah,
to do
yeah.
you want to do something different. You just got to find out what that different thing is and give it a go.
Well, and I think that's part of the thing is I don't know. I have to talk to my therapist, but maybe he or she would tell me that that's why I buy different games. Like you buy different games because you're hoping that you're going to find something that is different in your approach. So this game facilitates it because it's a different game. And you go, oh, that's different than D&D, even though I'm a game master. But I got to do X and Y. So this game is much better. And I don't even know better, but different, right?
Yeah, just a slightly different attack, like Dungeon World, right?
So maybe I take D&D and hack the shit out of it because I've got all these awesome other cooler little things that I can implement that isn't really part of this game.
Which is what I've been doing with my D&D games, is I hack the shit out of it at this point. I shouldn't say hack the shit out of it. I add different components or features that I like from other things that I've read, but I want to keep a certain core mechanic. But I guess how do I do this? So the interesting piece is that I think I played with you a couple times now, and you run games at conventions.
One shots.
One shots
are a little different, I think.
True, but you're trying something different, though, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know, every time you've run, like the Force 5 from Alderaan, you're doing Inglourious Bastards Star Wars game.
I don't think I've ever run the same game at a con. Like, it might be the same type of game system, but I don't know if I've ever run the same game.
Which is cool. I mean, that's one of those things, I guess, where I'm going is that the cool piece that what I'm hearing you say is that you're not afraid to fail at something. You're going to try it. If it doesn't work, oh, well, fuck it, I'll scrap it. I've got a gamer ADD anyway. I'll grab something else and try it. And reading the other books, checking out the other game systems and stuff, I think is key to that, because you'll find something you're like, hey, I want to try this. Well, even if I don't play with my quote unquote regular group, I'll run it at a game convention. I'm not playing Savage Rules with anybody else. I'll try it here. If it's an abysmal blowout, I don't know any of these people. Worst case is these men and women think I'm a moron. I'll just move on from there.
Right. And it may not be because of the game.
So
I'm all right with that.
So I'm already there. But I think the important piece, I guess, again, we can probably wrap this here because I'm back in my death cycle. But as game masters, we're going to fail. And I think the best thing from a player's perspective to do is be supportive of the failure. Let the game master try something. And if it doesn't work, honest, non-critical feedback. We've talked about that before. Or I should say critical, but not asshole-ish feedback. Like, look, hey, we didn't work. Let's try something different. And as the game master, don't be focused on every session needs to be perfect. Don't worry that this session may have sucked. See if you can pick up the next one. If you got 3-4 sessions that are no good and they're just not working for you, maybe you need to scrap the campaign at that point. But you don't have to be perfect. And I think that, I feel that sometimes where I'm super uber self-critical. I'm not good enough. I'm failing at this. Damn it, I wish I was a better game master. Well, if only I would have tried harder. Part of it is my passion for the hobby. And part of it is, I'm sometimes worried about failing. And I think the older I get at it, the less I give a shit. I'm like, whatever, that didn't work. Fuck it. Okay, I'll try the next thing. Yeah. Well, that didn't work. Oh, well, I can always go back to D&D if I have to. Hey, that was fun. Get my confidence back, and I'll thrust myself back into this other game I've never played before. Anyway, folks, I think Sean and I really went off on a ramble here. We tried to be organized, didn't go so well. But anyway, I'm interested in your thoughts, as we always are, around game masters, failure, and that type of thing. So throw us what you got. Give us some thoughts and ideas. I think we threw a lot of shit out there, so we probably could fine-tune this in another episode. Anyway, let's move on before we get worse.
Die roll. Episode. Segment of the show where we bring 2 to 4 miscellaneous points of gaming and geekery to you. Brett's got 2, I've got 4, and we've got 3 listeners that are contributing.
Yeah, that's right. So,
ahead, Brett.
as Modi has acquired F2Z Studios, that means Z-Man Games, Plaid Hat, and Philosophia. So, as Modi continues its massive land grab,
Waka waka waka. Woo woo.
yeah, they've got
Waka, waka,
Pandemic,
waka,
Dead of
waka, waka,
Winter, Carcassonne, Catan. It's kind of cool. It's a big deal. It's a big deal within the.
I don't know
the
if
old
it's
hobby
cool,
sphere.
man. I get worried about these big guys gobbling up everybody because then they're just going to be this big, huge behemoth. I don't know.
I don't know. You can go up. Yeah. I get. Good point. Interesting though.
Yes.
The other piece is a bit of So I was able to do a guest spot on Down with D&D. Yeah. So
Freaking traitor.
I know. Sneezak pulled me, Mark Napak, and
Okay, I'm just kidding.
nice. No, he's not. This is me getting him back for the other thing.
Hey, I have to check our contract, man. I
Do
think
you?
I might be able to hold you to something here.
All right, fine. I'll buy the next beer.
Might be a lawsuit in
The
this.
next motorcycle ride, I'll buy the first round. There, that's how that goes.
We can overlook that
We can
clause.
overlook that clause. So Mark and Tom, Tom from Nights and Night, Mark Napak, Queen City Conquest guy, and former co-host of Misdirected Mark. The three of us were on with Chris Sneezak, and we talked with some D&D stuff on their latest episode. It was What Does D&D Mean to You? It was kind of the general topic, and we went through that. It was pretty cool. So link in the show notes. Go out there, take a look, take a listen.
I gotta listen to another podcast to find out what is D&D to you, Brett.
Yeah, well, I'm not telling you now.
No, you can't.
I can't.
Because it's probably against their contract.
It is.
Right. So fuck.
Over to you, sir.
Internal layout of the Millennium Falcon in IO9. I think they finally formalized the internal layout of that thing, which is probably people scratching their head because they've probably had this layout in place ever since episode 4 back in 1977, but whatever. I thought it was pretty cool. Check it out. And if you're living under a rock, or maybe you're just simply not in the same channels online, Star Trek RPG is coming in the summer of 2017. It's coming from Modifius. They do Mutant Year 1, Mutant Year 0, what have you.
Mutant Chronicles, Conan,
Mutant
Octum Cthulhu.
Yeah. So they do quite a bit of games. They're going to put out they got the license for Star Trek, probably to coincide with Star Trek Discovery. If you don't know what Star Trek Discovery is, go out and Google it and find out the first trailer for that. That was released at San Diego Comic-Con this past weekend. And this is recorded end of July 2016. Anyways. Yeah, so I'm pretty stoked. I might buy that one.
Really?
I played Star Trek FASA.
Oh, okay. That was the one I played. Star Trek was FASA.
Literally, I think it was the second RPG I'd ever played. Top Secret and Star Trek FASA were like number 2 and 3.
Wow. Okay.
Yep. And we played because I hung around a bunch of Star Trek nerds when I was a kid. And
no one I knew growing up was a Star Trek person. I just was not part of my DNA.
My buddy Jeff thinks he's still Captain Kirk. And so now he's torn between Darth Vader and Captain Kirk. Anyways, but he had done like Decipher, he bought books, but like the time I was out of role-playing games, that's when kind of Decipher was into play. I think there's another property in there somewhere. But I may jump on this one. My buddy Jimmy is a big Decipher Star Trek guy. He runs them at cons on occasion, but yeah, I'll probably pick that up because I think it spans everything too. I think it spans like classic Trek and Voyager,
Next
New Generation,
all that stuff.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Neat.
So and to continue with the Star Trek wagon, the documentary For the Love of Spa kickstarted. You can now pre-order it and see the online trailer, which I'll have a link to. That releases September 9th. And it kind of hits you in the feels because it talks about Leonard Nimoy. His son said, hey, you know what? We should, record kind of your venture and your journey and blah, blah, blah. And his dad was like, yeah, sounds good. And so I failed to remember his name, but he's produced a documentary about his father, and it's called For the Love of Spock.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. A lot of very kind words about Leonard Nimoy in that film, of course. And then number 4 for me, how not to run D&D for kids, tweens, and teens. And I found this on Triple Crit blog. So some of the folks have written in and said, hey, how do I get my kids into role-playing games? And how does Brett do it? And blah, whatever. So this is a blog about some of the things that you don't want to do to your kids. Like one of them is like talking down to them or something, like dumbing it down. I think.
Yeah, don't dumb it down. Don't rules lawyer up.
Right. So
Don't
there's.
lecture.
I thought it was a pretty decent article. I thought it could certainly relate to some of the gamer parents that want to get their kids into games, which is, I think, a huge deal.
A lot of times when people ask, how do you do a thing, they want to know, kind of to our earlier attempted topic, is what don't you do? Right? That's
Right.
part of what you do is don't do these things. And this hits a couple of good ones.
But see, and I think we, Brett, our generation is the first to really kind of sit down and be able to pass that to kids, right? Because I don't know anybody that is in our generation, Gen X, that have sat down and said, yeah, my parents taught me how to play D&D. No. We learned from like our older brothers or our other siblings, older siblings, neighbor, kids, friends, maybe cousins, relatives.
Well, I mean,
whatever.
if there are folks out there who that is true of, there's not many.
Right.
I would, that we're the larger group.
It's not impossible.
Well, but we're the larger group. I get it.
So I think
it is a good article. I did see it. I forgot to put it in mine, so I'm glad you snagged it out here. It's a good article.
Yeah. That's what I have.
All right. Listeners, Hawk Sparrow points us to a YouTube link on big battles in RPGs. Got some tips. Speaking of tips and tricks, Hawk was looking to do kind of some mass combat-y type stuff and how to make it interesting in RPGs. And a little YouTube link out there in the show notes. Take a look at it. I gave it a look. It's kind of interesting. I think Hawk may have passed another topic to Sean and I about big combats in RPGs. There is kind of an art/science to that, heavy on the art in my opinion, but that might be something for later. Chris Shore passed us a link as well to the first ever Indigenous Comic-Con. I misspelled Indigenous here. It is a comics convention that basically puts Native artists in the spotlight. So it's kind of cool. Go out there, link in the show notes. I think it is pretty darn slick. The other one is Forrest Aguirre brought our attention to a library in the Paris Underground. So there's a lot of, I think a lot of folks out there know about the catacombs in Paris and so forth, but there is there's a library of a carefully crafted collection of books that wait in perpetual darkness for wanderers in the underground, wearing head torches to disturb the silence and shine their light on dampened pages. It's just I look at this and I'm like, this is totally gamer material. This is where a lich would hide. This is it's just good stuff. It's a good article, good some nice photos in there as well. So thank you, Forrest, Chris, and Hawk. I always appreciate your stuff there.
Yes, thank you, everybody. Speaking of which, on the library in Paris Underground, and I think last week, Cthulhu might have sent us one about the secret little back rooms of libraries, right? Nobody has mentioned, especially here in Madison. I don't know if you know this, Brett. You know about the steam tunnels?
Oh, yeah. I went to school here, dude.
Yeah, but so nobody's mentioned anything about our steam tunnels. So for those that are foreign to Madison.
That's because of the chuds, man.
Chuds?
Cannibalistic human underground dwellers. Duh. It's a 80s movies. Chuds. Come on.
Chuds.
Yeah,
right. Got it. Yeah, chuds.
Anyway, so steam tunnels in Madison.
Steam tunnels in Madison. So downtown Madison, a lot of the older buildings, including the capital of Wisconsin and Madison, and the university buildings they used to heat them through the steam tunnels. So one massive network. And I don't know if they go in there very often. There was supposedly a legend that there was a guy. I don't know if his name is like Steam Tunnel Willie or whatever his name is.
If you have steam tunnels on a college campus over the years, somebody somewhere is going to have. I mean, yeah, it's going to come up. There's going to be a rumor somewhere. There's probably no albino alligator down there too. Why not?
But I heard they hired this guy, like the Madison Gas and Electric hired this guy to change light bulbs through all the steam tunnels because he knew him so well.
Why not? I'll go with it.
I can't remember the guy's name. Yeah. But hey, weird story, but my buddy Dustin and I tried to get into him. It was not a good. It was not
It
a
didn't
good,
work.
Did not. It was not a good approach because we were trying down by the Union. Like the Union has like an inlet.
Yeah, they do.
And we thought, we'll go through there and we'll get into the steam tunnels. Yeah, it didn't work very well. A lot of water.
A lot of water.
Yeah.
A lot of poor
Cold.
spelunking.
Yes, it was spelunking. It was kind of cool, but we were
In over your heads.
Yeah, we were knuckleheads. Anyways, want to thank you for joining the show. I also want to thank London Drake for the great review on iTunes. Thank you so much. He says Brett should run a game of Pendragon.
Ooh.
Yes.
That box set is sitting up there calling me. Not a
Because he
bad
mentioned
idea.
he's like on episode 33.
Yeah, we
and
talked about
mentioned-
games we hadn't played yet. Type of
And
stuff. Yeah.
he said that you should run one of those. And then also thank you goes out to Gabriel D for the kind and generous donation. So he's donated a few dollars to us and hadn't gone the Patreon route for whatever reason, and that's okay. So I wanted to let Gabriel know we received it and appreciate it, and thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, London Drake and Gabriel. That's very generous of you both.
So what are we doing next week, Brett?
Next week, we're going to talk about rules we never use. Yeah, there's a couple rules that, regardless of the game system, that I know I never use, and I figure Sean's got a couple out there too, because we've learned that Sean is a terrible.
I just
game
pick up the
master.
book and go, "Here's the rule book," and then I throw it over my shoulder. There, pretty easy.
Wait, how can you play by the rules if you don't have the? Oh, you don't play by the rules.
It'll be a short episode for
It'll be
Sean.
a short
So,
episode for
Sean, ever run into this? Yeah, pretty much every game I run.
Yep. I burn the rule books in front of the players as a homage to how much I give a shit about them.
I ask them to pass them all to their right, and then I throw them promptly into the garbage.
Go to the opening page and rip them out. That's what we do.
This has been another fantastic episode of Gaming MBS. I'm one of your hosts, Sean.
And I'm Brett. Good night, good game and all.
This episode of Gaming MBS presented to you by patrons like Jeff Rademacher, Christian Sexy Voice Serrano, Kevin Lovecraft, Joe Swick, Brett's Biggest Fan, Steve Day, Old School DM, Forrest Aguirre, Tony Baker, Mark Anthony Benedetti, Palladian, Bruce Cunnington, Eric Jeppesen, Andy Hall, Misdirected Mark Productions, Sean Nicholson, Tim Jensen, Chris Steele, Knights of the Night Crew, Jason the Beard Blaylock, Remy Bilodeau, Jason Hobbs, Mark Tasaka, Mirko Froelich, Wayne Humfleet, James Carpio, and the Pure Mongrel. Consider becoming a patron. For the cost of a coffee shop coffee, you can support the show for an entire month. Whoa.
Clear? I'll stop recording then.